So tamales were the street food of Los Angeles before tacos were. There were tamale vendors in LA since the Spanish days. I wouldn't be surprised if the pobladors had a few tamales stashed in their pockets when they came, because they were just food that traveled.
Yeah.
Have food will travel. Am food will travel. But it was
the Donner Party story. Am food will travel.
But we don't know it yet.
No, but nobody even sees it coming. Nobody even
can be food. But it was around the 1870s when the Tamaleros started appearing, selling them on the street out of wagons or carts, and suddenly the Old West started looking a little bit like Los Angeles of the modern era. Because this was Old West times, and then suddenly there's like the people selling hot dogs outside of Staples Center.
Right. Everybody's a cowboy, but all of a sudden there's a food truck.
Yeah.
And, they meet at the hipster bar. They play billiards. They go over to the food truck outside.
Yeah. They became insanely popular amongst the recent immigrants and poor laborers because they were cheap and quick and readily available.
Yeah.
Tamales I'm talking about. But
not cowboys?
Not cowboys, although they come easy. But the secret got out quick because pretty soon all the drunk cowboys coming out of the saloons late at night would stumble over to the tamale wagon demanding tamales. And when a cowboy demands a tamale of you, you give him
a tamale.
You take a clump of that gold that you found that you killed that prospector for, and you give it to them. Not to mention all the socialists and the anarchists who were holding meetings downtown also loved these tamales because they were cheap, and socialists and anarchists notoriously don't have money. This was like the perfect food for everybody.
I feel like you could easily be describing like 2020 Echo Park. There's anarchists, but there's also cowboys, and they're all drinking at a bar, and some of them are underground, but they're all eating tamales.
They're rollerblading cowboys. But on top of all this is that they were also a gateway food into Mexican cuisine.
Right.
And it was a huge leap forward in the melding of white and Latino culture in Los Angeles. Was people coming together to eat a tamale, like a Lady and the Tramp style. A cowboy on one end and a ranchero on the other end, and they meet in the middle.
And underneath them, an anarchist is just whatever falls down, he picks up. He has his hands in a little bowl.
He's using the husk as a flag because he's just crazy.
He wants healthcare for everybody. He's crazy.
And the socialist is angry because he didn't get any. And just like how LA is now Taco Town, by the 1880s, you had to get a tamale when you came to Los Angeles. Like you had to get pizza when you go to New York, or you had to get yelled at when you go to Boston. They even spread to the upper class with rich white people being served tamales on fine china in their homes or at restaurants. Which one is the tamale fork?
This corn husk is delicious.
Ooh, what are these innards? Is this the gut? Ooh.
Throw these innards away.
Give it to the socialists.
Yeah, I'll eat this corn husk. Delicious. Hot and delicious.
An anarchist living in their dumpster. But just like how I'm not paying $4 for a taco at a restaurant, most people wanted to eat them off the street like the dirty dogs that we are.
Do it to me.
Most the anarchists that I secretly want to be. Most of this activity centered around the plaza at Olvera Street down Main towards 6th Street.
Okay.
Like that's where most of this was happening. It was like a tamale row where the streets were paved with tamales. This was the main hub of the city, this stretch, because you had the day laborers, the drifters, and the saloons. So there were a ton of people selling tamales to all these willing customers for tamales.
What do you have like a year around?
Like the 1880s.
Oh, okay.
This was
there was also like legitimate businesmen and like people who like had mom and pop shops like a barber.
Well, we'll hear about them.
Okay.
You've heard of the term NIMBY, right?
No, I haven't.
What are you talking? You've never heard the word NIMBY?
No.
Not in my backyard?
Oh my God.
You've never heard that?
I did. I just wanted you to say it all. You pig. No, I never heard the word NIMBY before.
And now I can send that. I can send that audio clipping to those homeless people pretending to record a podcast. Not in my podcast studio. I imagine like Figueroa today. Like I said, when you get out of Staples Center after a Kings game or something, but instead of hot dogs, it's a bunch of steamed corn husks.
Right.
Like that's just what it was like.
Yummy. Give it up.
Especially at night, it was crazy on this stretch, and the competition was fierce, so you had to have gimmicks to stand out. Some people made tamales right there on the street instead of bringing them pre-made. Some had counters set up on their carts that you could sit up to 8 people on one of these carts. One guy had a 2-story cart that he would sleep upstairs in so that he could travel all around the city selling tamales without having to go home like a tamale kung fu.
I come to a town, I break up a fight, I solve a problem, and I sell 30% of my tamales.
Please, our tamale warlords are fighting each other, and it's tearing the whole town apart, and then he makes like a really good tamale, and then he just kills both of them. I watched Yojimbo the other night also, so there's my other reference for you.
I love, this is a tangent that doesn't have to go to the episode, but I love, do you know that Dashiell Hammett wrote Red Harvest, and then Akira Kurosawa saw it and made Yojimbo, and then
whoever made Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, what's this? Ennio Marconi. No, that's the musician. Marconi made the music.
Louis Prima. Sergio Leone.
Yeah, Leone made. Thank you. That's all. I just like knowing that.
Let's say more Italians. Tony Soprano. Danny Bonaducci, Daniel LaRusso. So the vendors, Ralph Macchio for that matter.
Ralph Pinocchio or whatever his name is.
Who's the guy who recently played Pinocchio?
Benicio del Toro.
The most Italian man I've ever met. Benicio del Toro. So the vendors weren't just Mexican people, though. They were also black. They were white immigrant vendors as well, because it was a sure way to make some money. And like we were talking about, when you come to a new country or a new part of the country, like what else can you really do until you get your bearings except sell food?
Yeah.
And all you had to do was get tamales and pay $1 a month to be licensed, and you're in the tamale business, buddy.
Yeah. You get yourself a double-decker, some gimmicky double-decker cart.
You're going around looking like one of the puppets that wasn't used on the set of Star Wars, and you're just walking around with tamales, and you've got a demon head for some reason. Some of them would also sell other things like popcorn and sandwiches, and of course, pig's feet and oyster cocktails.
Sign me up.
But mostly it was tamales, and in particular, the style that was most popular in LA, the hot tamale style, which was an unwrapped tamale topped with chili con carne.
Okay.
So that was a hot tamale, really which good. Also that's another thing of chili. It's in the El Paso tamale region of like, chili's not really spicy.
And I've had spicy chili before,
but it can be spicy.
It's been advertised as being spicy.
When you hear chili, you're like, ooh, oh my God.
What's this now?
I better call out sick from work tomorrow. It's not a given that chili is going to be spicy.
Yes. Unless I think like there's different regions of the country where like it's
tamales. I think in some part, like I think we talked about with Max Miller, I think in some parts of the country, a tamale is spicy.
But also, I was talking about chili, but you're right about tamales.
I think they're filled with chili, and like that's why it's spicy.
Okay.
I don't know.
I never leave California, so I don't know anything.
I only eat tamales off the street, so I don't know. And they don't even sell them on the street anymore, so I just,
it's a very awkward transaction, but I get what I need. Everybody gets what they need. Everybody gets
Both sides are winners. By 1901, there were over 100 tamale vendors in LA at a time when there was like 87 people in the whole city. That meant, of course, that people were opposed to them. Right. What's that new word what's the word of the episode?
Cobra Kai! We won this mind meld.
Strike first, strike hard, not in my backyard. And by not in my backyard, they mean bonsai trees. So that, of course, meant that people were opposed to them because time is a flat circle and history repeats as a flat circle. The local businesses hated the mom and pop places. They hated the tamale wagons because they felt they were drawing away their customers. So as early as 1892, there were efforts made to ban tamale vendors on the street. It didn't work.
Nobody got a haircut because everyone's spending money on chili. That's not a problem. Like that's not a thing.
They're not coming and drinking my oyster cocktails. They're all eating tamales. That's disgusting.
Nobody came in the blacksmith shop because they're all eating tamales.
Kids these days don't need swords. They just want tamales. It didn't work, but in 1897 they tried a different tactic to not let the wagons begin to operate until after 9 p.m.
Okay.
Then in 1901, the police chief wanted them all to close by 1 a.m. because they felt that they were attracting a rough crowd, which was bound to happen when you're a food source located at an Old West saloon filled with Civil War veterans with PTSD. So yeah, there's going to be an occasional fight or two and theft that occurred around them. But the media, no doubt influenced by political forces, played all of these negative stories up by painting the tamale wagons as being dangerous and dirty places.
Yeah.
Not in my backyard. Then they tried again in 1903 to ban them completely, but this time the Tamaleros fought back.
Hell yeah.
Revenge of the Tamaleros.
Yeah.
They teamed up and got 500 of their customers to sign a letter saying how much the community needed the tamale wagons.
Right.
It said, "We claim that the lunch wagons are catering to an appreciative public, and to deprive the people of these convenient eating places would prove a great loss to the many local merchants who sell the wagon proprietors various supplies."
Okay, yeah,
so
smart.
Where are they going to get the wheels for the tamale wagon?
And those 500 people were shot and killed. And that's how the city works.
So there was kind of an uneasy truce between the Tamaleros Tamaleros in the city for a while, and oftentimes they were even embraced by the bigger organizations in the city.
Right.
In 1905, the YMCA ran a tamale wagon to raise money to send their track and field team to compete in Portland, so they were selling tamales. But the flip side of that was that same year, 1905, Los Angeles High School built their own kitchen so that they could make food for their students to keep their students away from tamale carts.
Oh my God.
Like, we'll give you food. Yeah. Don't go eat at a tamale cart for lunch.
Oh my God.
This was actually the first food prep cafeteria in a school in the entire country.
Really?
So this was like almost the beginnings of like cafeteria food at schools.
It's funny to think that the cafeteria was invented to fight off tamale wagons.
And then cafeteria guaranteed food was provided by the Black Panthers. So they took it back. But it was a long, slow losing battle for the Tamaleros. In 1910, 100 businessmen downtown signed a letter to have them banned once again because they said it made the area look bad. In 1920, a councilman named Fred Wheeler stood up for them, saying, "The tamale put Los Angeles on the map. These wagons are almost an institution in our city.
Yeah.
Cabrillo and his sailors are said to have found them here when they landed. Drive these wagons from our streets? Never."
And that's why you see them on every block.
Yeah, we're going to eat tamales for breakfast. We're going to eat tamales for dinner.
That sounds good. That's my life from like Thanksgiving to like New Year's. But you describing it right now sounds really good.
Then in 1924, they were finally officially banned from the plaza. But in true Tamalero style, everybody just ignored that and they kept selling them. But their popularity also spread beyond just the wagons. As we discussed with Max Miller, there was the Tamale Restaurant, which was opened by Samuel C. Wilhite. It sounds like another German.
Yeah.
What are these Germans taking? What's with these Germans taking all of my Mexican food?
Go to move to Anaheim, which is a German word.
This was in East LA, the tamale. In 1928, that opened up. It was shaped like a tamale. Yes. But there were also some mega tamale empires that arose from this tamale row. The not so good people of Anaheim copied the tamale trend of LA, and one of those idea thieves was Alejandro Morales, who in 1906 opened a tamale restaurant that eventually became the Don Miguel Mexican Foods Company.
Oh, wow, really?
So it started in Anaheim, but inspired by the downtown LA tamale vendors. But closer to home, and more importantly, because it's closer to home, was a company called XLNT. Max Miller also talked about this. Yeah. It's excellent. CEO was Keanu Reeves. Bill and Ted's Tamale Adventure.
Its founding member was Mr. Burns. Got it.
Bill and Ted Bogus Burrito is the sequel to this company. They started selling tamales in 1894. Excellent.
Yeah.
1894, downtown, they were doing it. But after a few years, they opened up a factory in Boyle Heights off Washington Boulevard because people loved their tamales so much and they had to keep up with the demand, and they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. They became sort of the go-to tamale brand in LA. Most likely they were providing the tamales to the tamale restaurant. Okay. So that's eventually they became owned by a worker of theirs named Charles Crawford, not that one.
Wow.
And imagine if it's that corrupt politician Charles Crawford started in the tamale business. And he started taking them outside the city limits. He got them into grocery stores.
He shot them because he's a gangster.
It is that Charles Crawford. I lied. Take that tamale behind the tamale barn and shoot it to international tamale waters.
Take the tamale, leave the tamale.
Take the husk, leave the tamale. He got them into grocery stores, liquor stores, and school cafeterias. Oh, wow. It comes full circle. There were ads in the newspapers saying that they were the best on earth. They sponsored a radio show on KNX 1070.
I don't know the rest.
You don't know? What?
The Wave?
Big Boy? Are we talking about Big Boy?
News 98?
How are these things going over your head that I'm saying to you? KNX 1070, News Radio.
Okay. You need to understand that I'm dumb. I don't know anything about anything. If you need to know one of the actors from Adam West Batman, I can name maybe 5 or 6 of them.
It's still around KNX 1070. So they have
News Radio?
News. Their logo for Excellent was in Disney cartoons, and they would like throw it in the background, and it was also in the background of Little Rascals shorts. You just see it going around.
That's funny.
In 1915, they got cars to start delivering their tamales rather than carts and wagons, calling it the Motorized Tamale Wagon, which was Ford's original name for the car.
It's hard to sell for Detroit, but in the West, it worked in the West.
They became a multi-million-dollar company under Crawford, making millions of tamales a year. By multi-million, I mean tamales. Yep. And also over 60 other items like taco kits, enchilada kits. They also made pizza and mayonnaise.
Together or separate?
Pizza flavored mayonnaise. Cut out the middleman when you put mayonnaise on your pizza.
We'll do it for you. Here's a kit.
When pizza's in your mayonnaise, you can have mayonnaise anytime. They were eventually bought by Alex Foods, which were a tamale company also in Anaheim that also invented Doritos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but now they're owned by Santa Fe Importers, and they're back in town. They're in Long Beach. They were a serious local favorite that it's kind of fallen out of favor nowadays, but they've been using the same recipe since 1906 in their signature red, white, and blue packaging. They're only found in the freezer section of supermarkets now, and they have a map on their website showing which supermarkets sell them. If you want to go, get me a sack. They also have some pretty cool shirts on there, which you should get me a sack of those too. You can buy them in bags of 6, 12, or just one giant tamale.
Oh yeah.
Could you imagine such a thing?
Oh yeah. Family style.
Yeah. And
everyone just takes like a fork and just starts wolfing it down.
The waiter has it like it's like on his back and he's like trembling under the weight of the tamale. And the corn husk is then recycled into like a wedding gown for somebody.
They put it on the table and it like if Flintstone Cars turns over, like the big rib cage.
It's a living. They only make chicken or beef, but you can also buy their frozen chili con carne to get real sloppy and make it hot tamale style if you want to. Get the giant one and make it hot tamale.
And you know what? This Christmas season, make it a hot tamale.